Okay, so we're learning the laws of damages.
We decided what next saver we're going to use.
No, we still have a few more packets. But I'm thinking of maybe doing. I'm thinking of a couple of different things. I'm thinking of Talmud Yerushalmi to do it, but not to pressure ourselves with the Daf Yomi, but maybe an Amud a day. Because I've never studied Yerushalmi in order. So maybe we'll do Yerushalmi brachas next. That's that's a thought. Okay. All right. So a person goes into a store. That's what we learned last time. Let me just see if I'm sharing the screen. Not sharing it yet. Okay. Person goes into a store and he to buy, let's say that the jar of pickles or to buy glass containers or glass artwork or whatever. And he picks it up and it drops and it falls all over the place. Or maybe someone pushes him and it falls from him. So who's liable? Is the buyer liable because it fell out of his hands? Um, or is he putter because it was totally by accident? Okay, so the answer is Kona shaloka chayfetz liknoso, the kodem sheshilem aviro lemocher nishbar. If a buyer picks up an object to purchase and before he pays, the item breaks, av sheshviras hamotzer haisa ba'onis gamor, even though it was totally by accident, im hachayfetz michiro haya katsuv, v'hakonehi biho kedei liknoso, if the merchandise had a fixed price that he was aware of at the time when he purchased, when he picked it up, and he picked it up in order to take it to the cash register, chayev hakona l'shalim l'mocher esdamav, then he becomes liable to pay because he had every intention of purchasing it. So when he picked it up with the intent that it was going to be his, and so now he has to pay for it. Now we'll see what the source of this is, but he makes this distinction, interestingly enough, between whether you picked it up knowing the price or whether you picked it up in order to bring it over to the salesperson and say, how much is this? וכן מי שבא לקנוס מחנות מוצרים כגון כוסות, צלחות וכולי, and if a person goes to a houseware store, let's say, where they sell cups and plates and things like that, ולקח מאותם המוצרים האלו, וכוונתו הייתה לקנוסם, you picked up let's say, a plate, a cake plate, let's say, and your intention was to buy it. ותקף ומייד כאשר נטלם והגביהם בו אחר, וחטף עושה מידו והולך לו, ועדיין לא נשן דמים למוכר. Let's say a person were to grab that cake plate from your hands, and they haven't yet paid the merchant. Kevin shahakone higbiim laotam hamotzim sheyesh aleim mechir kavua, since the buyer number one, who originally picked up the cake plate, picked it up with the intention of purchasing it because it had a fixed price. It's as if we say that he acquired the plate from the time he picked it up. And therefore he's got to pay the merchant immediately upon picking it up. And he's not allowed to withdraw from that commitment after once he picked it up. Because once it was your intent to buy it, then if you pick it up, it's yours. You pick it up, it's yours, right? That's the policy.
So, like, how about you acquired at that point?
Yeah, yeah, because you picked it up with the intention to acquire it.
And the intention you pick up, the intention is to look at it. That's
So that would be different, he says. But once you pick it up with the intention, like if it's a jar of pickles, right? There's very little inspection that we would expect.
Expiry date.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. B'cheinim nichnas.
check on.
That's okay. That's interesting. B'cheinim nichnas lechanut k'dei liknos o levarer al eza motzer mesuyim u'mechusar zehirus hipil chayfetz shehu shavir v'nishbar. So, and therefore, also, if a person walks into a store to either purchase or levarer al ezer motzer, or just to clarify a particular product, and carelessly cause the item to fall and break, chayiv l'shalim kedin mazik. He has to pay because he's a mazik. In other words, if I walk into a store and I end up damaging goods, even if I didn't have the intention to purchase, I'm a mazik because who told me to go into the store? L'mocher kemechir sitonai velo kehamechir shenimkar b'chanus. But because I could argue that I didn't plan to pay it, he has to give me a discount on the product. He's got to sell it to me for his wholesale price and not for his retail price. Ela im kain mochel bala chanus ala tashlum, unless the storekeeper is willing to be moichel. In other words, typically, as we mentioned yesterday, typically storekeepers are moichel on these kinds of breakages when it comes to supermarkets. Not so when it comes to smaller shops, mom and pop shops, where they have to pay for every item that gets broken. They will typically ask the customer to pay for something that breaks. Now, he says two things, which I don't know why he had to say two things. The first thing that he says, when you pick something up with the intention of buying it, it becomes yours as soon as you pick it up, even before you pay the merchant. The second point he makes is, even if your intention was not to purchase it, but if you come into someone's store and just to look at the merchandise, you want to browse, and you accidentally knock your elbow into a jar of pickles and it falls to the ground, then you're liable as a mazik, even if it was totally by accident. Why? Because you came into someone else's domain and you damaged their property. So by all rights of halacha, that shopkeeper can say, you didn't have to come into my store, and then you wouldn't have broken anything. The fact that you came into my store means you come into my property, damage my property that is for sale, means that you have to pay for it.
The cost or
Right. Now, when it comes to damages, like if your intention was to buy it, then I guess the issue is you have to pay full price. If, however, your intention was just to examine it and it falls and breaks, or you accidentally brush up against it and it falls and breaks, so then you don't have to pay the full price. You can say, I'll make you whole for the damages, but I'm not paying you the full full price.
Talks about children also. Damage if it's your child does.
Well, that's actually a good point also, is that
usually happens. Child.
Generally speaking, we saw a psak previously that you don't have to pay for children's damage. They are considered to be a separate human being. However, different communities can impose different penalties on boisterous children.
Mark, the secular law.
Yeah, that's one of the jurisdictions that has this parental responsibility act to look at.
Yeah, right. We did that several months ago.
And then would the child be liable once they reach policeman?
Yeah, potentially. Although that's lifnim mishurasatin, that's above and beyond the letter of the law. In other words, the letter of the law holds a child completely blameless even when he gets older. Okay, so what are the sources of this halacha? So it's a Gemara in Bava Basra, Amar Shmuel, Hanotel kli min ha'uman levakro, v'ne'enas biyado chayav. If a person picks up a utensil, an item for sale from an uman, from an artisan, he wants to check it, and something happens and it breaks. Okay, v'hani mili. So then the halacha is he's going to be chayav, V'hani mili hu dekaitzi demei. But that's only if the price was fixed when he picked it up. Because if the price was not fixed, then we're concerned that, as soon as I break it, the merchant can say, oh, that's a really important item. My charge is $1,000. And you say, what are you talking about, man? V'hainu kasher ketzuvim damav shel hakli. It's because, there has to be a fixed price to the kli. V'hainu kevin shef shalomar kishanatel sakli ve'enu chaser likniyaso ela bedika hareze kenotel oso liknoso. So he says, and the reason is because the only thing that is deficient in this purchase is the guy wants to pick it up to examine it, but he definitely wanted to buy it. So he just wanted to pick it up to make sure that there's no nicks or problems, or if you wanted to, let's say, make sure that there's no crack or whatever it is. And so that's the reason why he picked it up to examine it, but otherwise he plans to buy it. So then it's as if he picked it up for the purpose of acquiring it. So that's step number one. And then the Gemara there in Bava Basra says, Hahu Gavra da'ol lebeitivcha al minas liknos basar. A guy goes into a butcher shop with the intention of buying some meat. Higbiya biyado yerach min habasar kedei levodcha. Asa pirsha, which is peresh, or the chataf osam himenu. So a guy went into a butcher shop. He picks up a thigh, I guess, of an animal in order to check it out, make sure it's still fresh, and some kind of parsha. I think that is some kind of official. But let me just look up the official definition. A parash is a horseman, a guy on a horse, a rider, comes by, the chataf osa mimenu, and grabbed it from him. And so the guy and the horseman rode off with it. So the question now is, who's liable for that piece of meat? So bahadin lifnei Rav Yemar v'chiyav osa l'shalim estameha l'mocher abasar. So Rav Yemer paskined that the guy who had picked up the meat has to pay for it.
But he was holding it when the other guy came.
He held it while the horseman came and grabbed it from him and rode off with it.
This is all in the store.
It's not clear if it's in a store, in an open market.
Okay.
It probably is an open market if a guy's on a horse,
Right.
running.
It's still in the confines of the cell.
It seems that way. So umamida hagemara sham hani mili kol zedavka b'makom sheketzuvim dameha shel yerech zu shelikichasa biyad hareza kemekach gamor. And the Gemara explains the reason. Since you picked up the thigh, we assume it was for the intention to buy it, and therefore when you picked it up, it was for the purpose of acquiring it. So when the guy on the horse swooped down and grabbed it from you, it was already yours, and therefore you have to pay for it. So there, it's a case not where you broke the item, but where the item got stolen from you after you picked it up, and the guy ran off with it. The storekeeper says, you have to pay me for it because when you picked it up, it was for the purpose, you had already intended to acquire it.
Even though you don't, what happens if you realize that the price is too high, I can't afford it,
So it has to have had a price that was already fixed on the merchandise. If you don't know what the price is, then you can use that as an excuse to say, I didn't know what the price was and I wouldn't have paid,
That situation where the prime rib, I wanted to have something special, and there's no price in there, then all of a sudden, I gave it to the guy to say how much it costs, and yeah, I can't pay that.
Your eyes popped
So,
out of your head.
Yeah,
It's too special.
yeah, so that case, I didn't own it. But
What do you mean? You ordered prime
no, I
rib?
saw a big piece of prime rib without a.
Oh, it was in a
prime rib,
butcher shop.
Butcher shop, so I said, I took in,
How much
I
would
like
this
to
be?
buy it until I realized how much it costs.
Yeah.
So
No, you wouldn't be liable in that case because you were picking it up to find out how much it cost.
or no, I was gonna buy it until I realized how much it costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Od muvasham hahu gavra shehevi de laos leir Param Nahara. Okay, I guess that was the name of the city, or Pras Nahara, although it looks like a mem in our printing. Bo hakol v'chol echad lokach dalas kedei liknosan, v'adayin lo shilamu. The Gemara brings another story. A guy brings a bunch of melons to the city called Pras Nahara, and everyone came because they were excited about these melons for some reason. Each person picks up a melon in order to buy it. V'adayin lo shilmu, and they hadn't yet paid for it. Kevin shelo yada mimi lidrosh es kaspo, because they didn't know who the merchant was. So everyone picked up a melon and said, "Where do we pay? Where do we pay?" Amar lahem harehem mikudashim lashamayim kidei shelo yuchlu lehanos me'osam hadalaos shalakhu. So the merchant made a public announcement and he said, "These are all hektish, these melons. No one can have them." For whatever reason, he didn't want this crowd of people to benefit from his melons. I have no idea why. Maybe it was because they were a rowdy bunch and he felt that they weren't worthy of his melons. Hey, Vius Adin, it's like no soup for you, right? No melons for you. Hey, so then the question became, now who is entitled to these melons? Hey, Vius Adin lifnei Rav Kahana lishol mahadin b'mikre dilan. So they asked Rav Kahana, what will be the din in this kind of situation where a person sanctified the melons to heaven after the buyers had already picked up the melons? Heishiv lahem ein bidvar of mamish, she'ein adam makdish davar she'ein ze shalo. He said that the merchant's declaration is invalid, because by the time they picked up these melons with the intention to pay, they had already taken those melons into their possession. And therefore, the merchant no longer is the owner, and you can't sanctify something that's not yours. V'chein b'mikra zeh, ma'amida haGemara calls it davra shekatzuvim demeim shal hadalos halalu. That's provided that the price was already known for these melons. Like each melon was going for $5 a piece. Everyone came running to buy a melon. The guy said, "No melons for you." And he wanted to make them hektish, but it was already too late, because since everyone knew the price, everyone already had intention to be kona. But if the price had not yet been fixed on these melons, and the guy was in the process of setting up shop, and that's why he wanted to stop these people. He said, "Wait a minute. I was planning," or maybe he was saying,
Given the demand, I would put the prices.
yeah,
up.
or I was planning to bring them to the shuk, to the marketplace in your city, and they weren't even for sale yet, right? So, but in any event, so that's only if the price was fixed that we would say that they had already acquired
It
them.
doesn't matter whether the price is fixed per melon or per pound. That would be considered fixed as well.
I think so. I think so. I get a sense that that would be the case.
Okay, well, you would lose, like he's got nothing, like any money now. Because it's hectares.
Right. Well, I guess
then
he could, no, he declared it to be hektish. There are situations where you could go to the Beis Hamikdash and get a Hataras Nadarim. You can go in front of 3 Dayanim and they can unhektishize it for you.
Reverse hectares.
I think so. I think if you say that I did it to protect my assets and therefore I have remorse for having done it, I think there might be instances where you could get that reversed, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not sure.
It's interesting, there's in secular law, there's a principle, that goes back hundreds of years. It's called risk follows the title. So if you want to know what happens to goods, let's say that get lost or stolen or destroyed while the buyer's holding it in the store or something like that, who bears the risk, the buyer or the seller? The answer usually is well, who has title to the goods, right? Who owns them?
Mhm.
So this is actually like the basis for it, right? If you do have a bar or something in intention, you
Right.
have title, right?
Mhm.
So you bear the risk, right? Or, whoever
It
does.
has title pound.
Yeah, so then
Yeah.
in secular law, they developed a bunch of rules. When does title pass? Usually when the parties intend it to pass or whatever.
Right. Interesting. Huh.
Okay, so he says, V'ayin barashbam v'chem nifsak dinze barambam uvetur Choshen Mishpat hanotelas, and so this is the language of the Shulchan Aruch. Hanoteles hakli mi beis ha'uman al manas levakro. If a person picks up an item, piece of merchandise from the artisan, in order to check it over, im hayu damav kitzuvim v'nanas biyado chayev, if it had a fixed price, and for whatever reason it breaks in his possession, he's going to be liable. Shahol v'damav kitzuvim me'esh she'igbiya nasa birshusa. Since it had a fixed price, then from the time you pick it up, it's considered yours. Ve'ein hamocher yachol lachzor bo. And furthermore, because it was yours, the seller cannot change his mind and tell you that's not for sale for you. I refuse to sell to you. V'hu sheyagbihenu k'dei liknos is kulo v'yeh oso chayfetz hanimkar chaviv alav al halokeach. He says, however, but that's only if he picked it up in order to purchase it. And v'yeh oso chayfetz hanimkar chaviv alav al halokeach. And the buyer actually wants the merchandise. Aval chayfetz hanimkar bekatzba v'hu mevakesh v'rodef l'mochro. Oh, and I'm sorry. It's desirable to the buyer. Aval chayfetz hanimkar v'katzba v'hu mevakesh v'rodef l'mochro. Harehu birshus hamocher ad sheyifsok hadamim. But let's say there's a piece of merchandise that the buyer does not want for himself. And all he's seeking to do is to see if this is something that he can sell to other people. So then it remains within the possession of the merchant until the price is fixed. V'yagbihenu halokeach achar sheyifsok hadamim. And only then, since this was not something that the guy personally wanted to acquire for himself, but was merely looking into seeing whether he could make a profit off of this, and he wants to therefore discuss with the seller what kind of deal he can make with him. So then he doesn't acquire it upon picking it up. He only acquires it after arriving at a price with the seller. And then, you acquire the goods only after you negotiate a new price with the seller. V'mgila daito she'eno chafetz bo, v'nignav onevad kodem shiachzirenu lo. He says, but let's say you say the guy picks it up and says, what a fascinating curio. I would never have something like this in my home. And you pick it up to show it to your friend. So it's clear from the circumstances that you don't mean to acquire it. And then at that point, it breaks or someone steals it from your hand and runs off with it. Yesh omrim shehu kishomer sachar, v'yesh omrim shehu kishomer chinam. So the question is, what was your status when you picked up an item? And even though you didn't pick it up in order to acquire it, you still are a shomer once you pick it up. So therefore, as a shomer, you have certain responsibilities to that object. Meaning that if I pick up your property, even without the intent to buy, I'm at least I have certain responsibilities to protect it from damage. And the question is, do I have the status of a shomer chinam or a shomer sachar? If I have the status of a shomer chinam, I'll be potter for geneva va'aveda. I'll be potter from theft. So if someone were to grab it from me and run out of the store, so then I'd be potter. But if an onus happens to it, I'm going to be liable. So if it drops out of my hands, I'm going to be liable. If a pshia occurs because I handle it clumsily and I drop it, then I'm going to be liable.
You're getting paid. You're not
So,
getting paid.
right. So that would be if I'm considered an unpaid guard. Why would I be considered a paid guard? That's not clear. Why would I be considered a shomer sachar? It could be because we look at it as like, why did you take it upon yourself to pick it up? Obviously, you're getting some benefit from looking at it, showing it to your friend or whatever. And therefore, since you're benefiting from my property, and that, let's say it's entertaining for you to pick this up and look at it and feel it. So then maybe you would be considered like you're getting some compensation for picking this up. You're getting some gratification. And as a result, you're going to be liable even for geneva va'aveda. You'll be liable even for theft. Now, Dea Aleph, so he's going to explain this. The reason why the first opinion holds that you're like a paid guard, a Shomer Sachar, and Dea Bay's Torah, the first opinion is the Torah, and the second opinion is the Torah quoting the Ramah. And the Torah also brings that according to the Rashbam and the Rush, you're even more than a guard. You're actually like a shoel. You're a borrower. And as a borrower, you're going to be liable for even onsen, for even things that happen to it completely by accident. And it's curious as to why that is not brought by the Shulchan Aruch. So the Sma, in explaining this halacha, we'll have to hold it here for today. It's a bit of a nebulous halacha, I have to say. I don't have full clarity why it is that when you pick up something in a store, we consider it as if it's your intention to buy it once you know that there's a fixed price to it. It could be that you know that there's a price maybe because the price is posted, or there's an index, a well-known index on this particular type of commodity. Okay, we'll have to hold it. Maybe we'll follow up on this tomorrow. Okay, have a great day, everybody.
I'll be away for a week or so, going to Cleveland.
Have a great trip. You're going back with your son?
Oh, he left